self-proclaimed vampire is charged with murder, and the press smells blood in a small Florida town. Shocking crime number 14, the vampire cult flames. Rod Ferrell's parents were teenagers who separated a few weeks after he was born in 1980. Rod's life with his mother Sandra was turbulent and confusing. The two never seemed to settle down for long.
My childhood personally was erratic, chaotic. It was just filled with a plethora of less than perfect situations and events.
As a teenager, Rod began to search for ways to avoid the real world.
I believe I was drawn to the vampiric lifestyle for the escapism it offered. Seduction, mystery. That's what makes it so alluring to people to go into.
Rod played his vampire role well and soon attracted a group of followers.
When I started my cult, I guess I used my charisma to bring people together. We formed like a pseudo-family bond.
Author Aphrodite Jones wrote a book on the case.
What it meant to these kids to be a vampire was to cut their wrists and drink blood of each other in rituals. On some level, it was like little kids who become blood brothers.
In 1995, Ferrell and his mother were living in Eustis, Florida. Rod became friends with a girl named Heather Wendorf.
She was rather intelligent. I've always been drawn to that.
In December of '95, Rod moved to Kentucky, but according to court documents, he kept in touch with Heather.
We had many phone conversations.
According to court records, Ferrell believed Heather was afraid of her parents.
I don't want to say that I led to the conclusion, but in a way I kind of feel like now, after so many years, that perhaps I did.
By November 1996, Rod decided to rescue Heather from her mother and father. Ferrell recruited 3 members of his vampire clan. 16-year-old Scott Anderson provided a car. 19-year-old Dana Cooper contributed gas money. And 16-year-old Charity Kesey was Rod's girlfriend. On the night of November 25th, the 4 teenagers arrived at the Wendorf home in Eustis, Florida, about 35 miles from Orlando.
I believe all of this happened for the simple fact that I overzealously tried to protect a friend.
Court records stated Heather packed a bag, wrote a note to her parents, and went with Charity and Dana to say goodbye to her boyfriend. Heather insisted she didn't realize what was about to happen next. Rod and Scott snuck inside the Wendorf's garage. Ferrell found a crowbar.
Rod entered the residence along with Scott. Rod actually did the killing. Scott froze.
Heather's father, 49-year-old Rick Wendorf, was lying on the couch watching television.
I went to her dad and smacked the f*** out of him until he finally quit breathing. Actually, it took him about 25 minutes to stop.
Rick's lifetime partner, 53-year-old Ruth Queen, stepped out of the shower and walked into the kitchen.
That's when she lunged at me. I just took the bottom of the crowbar and kept stabbing into her skull. Continually beat her until I saw her brains falling on the floor.
Rod and Scott took the Wendorf's Ford Explorer and left town with Heather, Dana, and Charity. Heather's older sister, Jennifer, came home around midnight.
Jennifer Wendorf found her mother and father deceased. We learned that Heather and Rod Ferrell planned on running away.
3 days later, the 5 teenagers were captured in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. When police interviewed Ferrell, the 16-year-old bragged about committing both brutal murders.
You can take it like you become God for a split second. It actually kind of felt that way for a minute, but if I was a God, I wouldn't exactly be here.
Meanwhile, Heather swore she was innocent.
I didn't know he was going to kill my parents. I remember telling us flat out, don't even go near my parents. I wanted them alive.
On December 17th, 1996, Rod was indicted for the murders of Rick Wendorf and Ruth Queen. Ferrell initially pleaded not guilty, but when his trial began on February 5th, 1998, Rod changed his plea to guilty.
I was responsible for doing something that was totally unnecessary.
The trial moved directly to the sentencing phase.
It is hereby ordered in the judge, Roderick Justin Ferrell. You are hereby sentenced to death.
The thought that I had in my mind was, oh well, there it is then. You know, I can't stop it. I don't know even if I want to.
Scott Anderson pleaded guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder. He was given 2 consecutive life sentences without parole. Charity Kesey pleaded guilty to being a principal to murder. Her sentence was 10.5 years. Dana Cooper pleaded guilty to the same charge and received a 17.5-year sentence. Heather Wendorf was never charged with any crime and maintains her innocence.
She's been free since the beginning, whereas the rest of us were all pretty much crucified to the maximum degree.
Rod Farrell no longer faces execution. Rod's sentence was reduced to life without parole following a decision by the Florida Supreme Court in 1999. According to Farrell, his years in prison have changed him. In 2008, the reformed vampire even got married.
Gina Maria Farrell is my wife, my reason for being.
The couple began corresponding while Gina was researching Rod's case for a criminology class.
A lot of people over the years have asked me, why did you do it? And I honestly tell them, you cannot define something so simplistically. I said, these things take entire lifetimes to build up, especially for juveniles. You can't fathom, no one can, what goes on in the mind of that teenager.
Coming up, a 14-year-old cowboy's shocking revenge.
I lost control, didn't know what I was doing.